Hi, I'm Jenny. I am a freelance developer and I run the Facebook group for female developers called Women in Web Dev. This is a Facebook Live that I did a few weeks ago.
So I'm alive with my friend Nicole, and we met last year at the Digital Nomad Girls Retreat.
Yay,
Best
TM.
10 days ever in 2017. And it was a retreat for girls who are already remote and wanted to take their business to the next level, or for me, it was to explore the idea of working remotely and seeing what everyone is saying about it. I had the goal of doing it, but I actually haven't really met people who did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, this has been a nebulous goal. So I needed to take action and figure out, is this something that I really wanted to do?
And totally. And you did it.
Yeah, I'm doing it now.
Yeah, it's crazy watching where everybody has come since that retreat.
Yeah. And so excited to have you on, Nicole.
Yay, thanks for inviting me.
So you have a very interesting story of how you left America and set up yourself in Germany. And you've also been a nomad off and on. Now you are a nomad. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how that whole thing came about.
So I guess I was it started as being the normal person who just likes traveling. And then around university, everybody was kind of traveling. So it was normal. So I studied abroad in England for a year in Brighton. And then I went back and I just wanted to go back to Europe. So then kind of my senior year in 2009 of college, I was it's they got rid of the UK visa, the working holiday that used to apply to Americans. And so I was okay, that plan's not going to work because I don't want to go to grad school and I don't have anyone to marry in the UK. So I Googled, how can I not live in America? And Google told me to go get my TEFL certificate to teach English in Prague. So I did that. And that kind of set me off on my adventure because I ended up teaching English. It's not really my thing, but it's always a backup plan and it was a good start. So I taught English in Prague for 6 months. Then I was kind of over it. My visa didn't work out. So I did a Euro trip for 5 months. And that's how I ended up in Berlin. I was supposed to go to Stuttgart to visit a friend. And then she moved that week and I was doing the Euro railing thing. So I was flexible. So I just went to Berlin instead where she moved. I didn't know anything about Berlin. I think at that point, all I knew about Germany was Hitler and Lederhosen and maybe Oktoberfest. So I went to Berlin and I was wow, this place is so cool. So then I was okay, I'm going to learn German and move back here. So I did that in 2011. I moved to Germany. And then they have a freelance visa there. So that's how I ended up first being a freelancer, not because I honestly, I had a very kind of normal mindset at that point where I was I'm going to work a 9-to-5 job and that's just what you do. But I couldn't because I had this freelance visa. So I sort of had to learn to freelance. And in the beginning, I did it all wrong. I just worked for companies as an employee, but I wasn't getting any benefits from it. And then I started going to freelance meetups and I sort of started getting the idea of how you should do it. And then I accidentally became a digital nomad because I got a job at a startup that didn't really care if I worked remotely or not. So they wanted us there part of the year for major meetings and stuff. But I did a 3-month road trip around the US on that job. I lived in Budapest for a month. Then I went to a lot of other places for 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, when my friends were in different countries in Europe. So that's how it first happened. But then I gave up being a digital nomad kind of because I got bored with what I was doing. I was doing a lot of customer service and that's fine. But after a few years of that, you're kind of okay, I need something else. And then I wanted to get my permanent residence in Germany. Yeah. And I went to a lawyer and she was basically well, it'll just be a lot easier if you're normal. If you have a normal job and you're paying into the retirement, a standard amount, standard salary. So at the time I was kind of tired and I wanted to hang out in Berlin for a while anyway. So I just got a normal job and that's where I got the job at the university, which I did for 2 years. And I got my permanent residence and then I recently quit that in December and now I'm in Melbourne, Australia, kind of doing a 6-month tour of Asia and Australia.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm not nomadic right now, but seeing all of your Instagram stories, I'm why am I not?
I was watching you before me though, so I think for several months, I was I have my normal job. And you were I'm sitting on the beach. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So can you talk about how and when you started coding?
Yeah, so I guess I started coding, like if we're talking like very first time. I
Mm-hmm.
I had a really now embarrassing Animorphs fan website when I was 10. I don't know if you know this book series. It's a young adult like
Okay.
sci-fi series about humans who morph into animals and there's like aliens involved. I was really
Mm-hmm.
into that book series when I was like 8 through 14.
Yeah.
So I made a fan site, and that was before there was like WordPress or anything like that. There was just Microsoft front page. So if you wanted to make the submit button hot green, you had to like code it in HTML.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, so that's when I first started coding, just because I wanted to make my little like Animorphs fan site when I was 10. So I guess it was always a little bit in my mind. My mom
Mm-hmm.
also was a programmer, so it
Oh.
was always kind of
Mm-hmm.
aware. I was always kind of aware
Yeah.
of that. And my dad's an engineer. So yeah, I used to try to like block them out of my computer with like a password thing. And my dad would just be like, and break through it and then be like, there will be no more passwords in this house. And I'd be like, man, why can't you be the parents that like don't know how to turn a computer on? Uh,
At least you don't get calls from them asking you, how do I fix the printer?
That's true. How do I use my iPhone? Yeah, that's true. I don't have to do
Yeah.
tech support for my
Yeah.
parents. Although they still can never make Skype like show their faces. Like it's always pointed like at their forehead or like at their ear.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of forgot what I was. Oh, my experience with coding. Okay, so then when I wanted to be a nomad again, I was sort of like, okay, what can I do? I didn't really think that my skills at the time were useful, although I'll get back to that because I think they actually are. So then kind of like everyone, I was like, I have to learn to code if I want a cool job and I want to earn some money. So
Mhm.
I considered doing coding boot camps and I kind of like did all the prep for some of them, but financially I just couldn't justify it. Like I spent so much, like there was so much money that already went towards my undergrad that I just couldn't picture dropping another like 10 to 16,000 euros. And I know everybody says like you're going to earn more later, but since I didn't want a regular job, and it seemed to make more sense the first several years of coding to like have a normal job from what I was reading, I sort of was like, okay, I don't think that's like the right time, but I sort of find it interesting and useful, and everything you do seem like involves coding in some way, like the more time goes on, or it gives you more flexibility. So I did free code camp. I tried a lot of different things. I tried Coursera. This was also just to see if I like it before I would pay for a boot camp or anything.
Yeah.
So I did a Coursera course with Duke University, and I didn't like it. It was very like, there was a lot of camera voice, you know, where like people are obviously talking to a camera and they're like, today we are doing da 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 and da da da. And I just couldn't take it seriously. And the coding we were doing, it was like, put a black square in the top right corner of this photo. And I just didn't, I was like, when am I going to use this? Like, when am I going to need to put a black square in a photo, you know? So
I guess when you're trying to like block out some inappropriate
I guess so. But then you could just do it in Canva. So I was just sort of like, but then I found Free Code Camp because I had been reading a lot of kind of reviews of stuff. And that was really good because they actually, towards the end, once you pass all their certificates, you actually would build apps for real nonprofits. So you have a portfolio. And that seemed really useful to me. So I started doing that. And I finished the CSS section and I finished the basic JavaScript section. I would say I'm about like 250 hours in. Okay. And that's when I started getting to the point, like once I did the API section was when I was finally like, oh, like I can use this. Like it was sort of a like, oh, I see how I could maybe use this in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Just adjusting my camera a little bit.
No worries. Yeah.
Cool.
And my last job, we used a lot of Google for everything. So once I realized Google Scripts was a thing, and I really hate data entry, I started kind of playing around with that to see like if there was a way I could avoid typing the same thing 80 times or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Coding is very good for that. The computer is very good at copying and pasting.
Yeah.
Okay, so sounds like you had basic API knowledge when you started doing like automating your college's course evaluations.
Yes. So that was kind of my yes, I actually did something useful in my real life. So basically when I started my job, so I was the college registrar. So I kind of was we can say like academic project manager. So we were kind of like the engine room for like all things academic at the university. So we planned out all of the course schedules, the rooms. We made sure like no courses overlap that students would need to take to graduate within like each major. We did like the evaluations at the end for each course, statistics, all those kind of things. So lots of sort of spreadsheets and all of that.
Yeah.
And so when I started, our course evaluations were on paper forms. So I would first I did it myself. Then I had to hire a student assistant to basically, they had to scan the form. So we had 200, let's say we had like 80 classes or 70 classes. Each student was in 4 classes. So we needed a form for each student for each class. So that was like a ton of forms, right? So I would pay a student assistant to photocopy them. Then I'd pay a student assistant to scan them. Then we'd pay other student assistants to like take the data from the form and put it back in a spreadsheet so it could be analyzed. Mm-hmm. So this is like several €100 a semester in student assistant labor. Mm-hmm. And just a lot of work and paper.
Yeah.
So right before I left, I made it a Google form and I wrote some code to take the template and reproduce it 80 times, but rename it for each class.
Yeah.
And then publish a short URL to a spreadsheet that related to each course name and teacher or instructor. Yeah. And then there's like a mail merge within Google Forms you can set up that automatically sends emails for you. So I used to send each thing to each professor individually. So then it would email, I made like a template email and it would email each professor their unique short link to tell their students. So it went from about 48 hours of work, if you count like all the student assistant labor, to about 1 hour of setup each semester.
Yeah, that's incredible. You got to save some trees and also a lot of time.
Yes. And a lot of data entry, because after you do that several semesters, you're just like, I don't want to do it anymore. Like I will go to great lengths to avoid data entry.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a few semesters a year, that's already like 100 and something hours, 200 hours.
That's crazy.
If you didn't have students, you were doing it on your own. That's like 200 hours where you could do something a lot more useful.
Yeah. And imagine if we had more students, like eventually it just gets to a point where it's like not sustainable at all.
Yeah. Like thinking back to my university days, I'm pretty sure our course evaluations was also on paper. But like my university had like 10,000 students. I mean, I'm not sure what they do now. So
yeah. That's crazy. Can you imagine? That must be like literally a room filled with paper.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Did you do any like coding projects before you did your admin task?
Before I did my what?
Before you did the course evaluations?
Yes. So in Free Code Camp, you have to do a bunch of things. So like the first is a portfolio page. That's just like CSS practice. Then you have to do, what else did I do? I think I had to do something with a lot of like tables and columns. And then I had to do a random quote generator. So that was using like an API from Twitter to like pull, so you could tweet the random quotes. And what else? I feel like there were a couple things. Let me actually see. But there were a couple of projects like built into Free Code Camp where you have to work on what you learned. So I did do a few of those,
Okay. Cool. Have you applied your coding to other things?
I have a Facebook group for like queer women digital nomads, and we do these Facebook Live events. So the first one, I actually took that random quote generator and I changed it to be a random question generator to give people kind of conversation questions to talk about as one of the choices. So that was one thing I used it for. And actually now for a client, I have to put in MailChimp forms in their website, and what I've learned about MailChimp is maybe the paid version is different, but the free version, you can't customize any freaking colors or center things or whatever. Like there's no way like within the thing without coding to do it. So I've actually just spent a lot of time like coding that so it doesn't look ugly on her website. So even though the job isn't technically coding, like it really has helped me out because there's been a bunch of things where like I wanted to change the color of a button to match her like branding color scheme. And that just wasn't possible in the software that the client was using. So I actually just did that like last week.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally. So it's definitely, I would say, useful because unless you, especially if you're working with clients, like a lot of times they already have systems. So like it's not so reasonable to always expect them to buy whatever software you want unless you have it and you give it to them. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you're doing your kind of like online virtual assistant freelance business. So are you going to keep learning how to code?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes and goes. Like I find that I need a specific goal. And once I feel like I need that for my own life, then I'm motivated to go through and code something. And then I kind of go through periods like when I have enough work, then I feel less motivated to code. This is always how it goes. And then when I'm like, oh, I don't know if I like what I'm doing, then I'm like very motivated to code. So I'm sort of on a break, but I go back and forth, you know?
Okay. No, that's cool. I feel like, like interests like these, when it takes a lot of time to develop the skills, it's good to take breaks, do it when you like it versus like feeling like you have to because you just burn out.
Totally. And I think you need an intrinsic reason why like you want to do it for yourself, you know? Like a lot of people want to learn to code because they just feel like they'll always get a job, but maybe they're not interested in it at all. And so
for sure.
I see a lot of people wanting to do boot camps for the same reason, but I feel like if you're not really interested in it and you don't really like it, then you're still not going to like it after you've paid a lot of money for a boot camp, maybe.
Yeah, it's like, you know, all those kids whose parents want them to be something, you know, like a doctor, be a dentist, be a lawyer, and it's not actually their own choice. Yeah. And they spend all this money, and, you know, the student graduates, and then they're like, oh, sorry, parents, I actually don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older, I feel like I have the guts to tell you.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Like, do you see yourself ever becoming a developer?
It's definitely not off the table. Like, I think what happened to me now is I realized that I already have skills that are useful that I can get clients with. So, like, I have a decent amount of work experience. I've been a project manager for, like, I've had project management roles for, like, 8+ years. So now I'm sort of doing this, like, online business manager or, like, online executive assistance thing. And that seems to be working out. So I'm trying to see where that goes. I sort of would like to get further in coding because I think it's interesting. I don't know if I could see myself being a full-time developer because I sort of like more, like, I don't think I'd always want to be in front of my computer. I sort of like a variety, but I think for me, the ideal situation, like if I have like 1 or 2 part-time projects coding and then other things, I think I would like that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's definitely something I'd consider, but right now I'm sort of going to follow the online business management thing for now.
And like, if you could use coding to automate a lot of the tedious tasks, you could, like, you know, increase your earning potential.
Exactly. So I think that's
what a lot of people want. They want to increase their earning potential. And you don't have to be a developer. You could just, you know, do things in a new, more efficient way and get the same results.
Yeah, and I think it makes me more valuable in that way too. And even in job interviews where people say they want you to be like comfortable with technological stuff. And also since I do project management, a lot of times you're project managing developers. And so they want you to understand how that works because you can't really project manage something that you don't understand at all. So it kind of goes to my benefit that I have a background in that as well. Even if I can't write an app myself, you know?
Yeah. So do you have any advice for people who are learning how to code on their own?
Yeah, I would say definitely free code camp. If like, I just see so many people, I would like, if you're not sure if you like it, start with free code camp. Cause I think a lot of people, they get excited and they put a ton of money into something when they're not sure they're going to like it. So
Yeah.
I would say definitely a good coding boot camp is probably worth it if you've already tested that you're sure that you like it. And most coding boot camps, I think, generally you have to get to a certain level before the boot camp anyway.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say like find a good online course and play around and see if you like it. Also community, because I think a lot of coding, like once you get stuck, it can feel super overwhelming and lonely. Like there's just been times where I'm like, I have no idea how I'm going to solve this problem. And I just want to throw the computer against the wall and give up forever. And there are times that I just gave up for like 2 months, 3 months, because I was just like, I can't think about this anymore. But if you like find a community, like I tried to find some like women who code things in Berlin, or there's like coding help each other groups, or even like online chat things. Like Free Code Camp has their own community, but then I think there's like Slack channels you can join, and there's like Stack Exchange, although people are kind of snarky on there. In my experience, you have to like make sure you're really asking the question properly, or somebody will snark all over you. So that can be discouraging if you're new, I think. But definitely find community and like just play around with it, like in a low investment or low stakes way in the beginning.
Yeah. So like, how did you find the communities? Like which ones were you a part of?
Yeah. So meetup.com in Berlin had the most. Free Code Camp also has communities like all over. So that was the first one I looked at, although I never ever went to a meetup. I tended to gravitate towards like the women who code ones. I honestly didn't go to so many, but there were a couple times I was stuck that I like went to a few, and it's just nice to be around other people. Or you get to a lot of times see like the inside of interesting startups at these meetups. And at the very least, you might get a free beer. So like totally worth it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, no, Vancouver, we are so spoiled here. Like if we have a meetup, it's like, okay, there's going to be free alcohol, and sometimes there's going to be like free pizza. Like if I go to a meetup and there's nothing, I'm disappointed.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
That's how spoiled we are here.
Yeah. Oh, I think we have a viewer. Hi, Jessica. She says hi.
Ooh. Okay. I totally don't see anyone, but
I have it separately on my phone.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. I gotta like get better at this.
Yep. Oh, it's cool. And Tanya says Free Code Camp has a global one and then by state. Yeah, I'm actually not in the US, so they even had one in Berlin. So I imagine in the US, if you mean US states, they probably have by states in most major cities. So it's actually part of the training. Like you have to find your community as part of your first module. They make you like sign up for some chats and forums in your local community, which I think is smart because I think you kind of need people to bounce things off of with coding.
Yeah, for sure. And do you have any tips for staying motivated other than joining community?
I was bad staying motivated sometimes, but I do always come back to it. I kind of found making it as like a fun experience. So a lot of times when I did my coding work on Free Code Camp, I'd go to a cafe I really liked and I'd get myself like a nice coffee. And in a way that would like get me out of the house, because I'd get to go sit in the nice atmosphere, drinking my nice coffee, and it was like an excuse to go there and then do my coding. And once I was there, so I found that helped.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Like it was more like, oh, this is a treat. Like I'm coding and this is a nice experience.
Yeah. Okay. And I think what really motivated me is like I really was going to apply for this boot camp in London that's free. This is called Founders and Coders. But then I realized like the chance of me getting in was like tiny because they mostly want British citizens because they think they make their money from like connecting people with jobs, and I'm not allowed to work in the UK. But anyway, when I thought I was going to code, they have a certain level you have to get up to on Free Code Camp before you're even eligible to apply. So that was super motivating. And in the past, I've motivated myself by lots of things by deciding I was going to apply for some type of grant. So, so I don't know. I guess it doesn't work if you already know you're not going to do it. But if you're at all considering, it is a good motivating factor, thinking that you're going to get a bunch of money if you get good at something or get to a certain point or, something like that. So if you're thinking of doing a boot camp, then reaching their requirements is definitely good motivation.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so those are all my questions. Wonder if there are any questions from our live audience.
Jessica says she has a scholarship to Software Guild. Is that a coding boot camp?
Sounds like it.
Maybe, must be. Let us know, Jessica.
Yeah.
But yeah, scholarships are good motivators. And there's lots of websites too with the scholarships. Like, what are the two websites that review the coding boot camps? There's like, I don't remember now.
Switch Up and Course Report.
Course Report is what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually wrote a blog post on affordable and women-only boot camps. So because Course Report and Switch Up, they have so many boot camps. And I know for a lot of women, like financial is a concern, right? Mm-hmm. And there are some boot camps where they're more affordable, meaning like under $8,000 US for full-time, for the full-time program. And that's way cheaper than like the 14, 16,000 US ones.
Yeah.
That are very common. So yeah, I decided to highlight those, and I'll pop a link in the comments after the live so people can check it out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love, that'd be interesting to go to all women's boot camp. It might still happen in my future. Who knows?
Well, the all women boot camps are usually the more expensive ones because it's like the Grace Hopper and like things like that. But there are quite a few for the affordable ones. One of them is Coding Nomads. So your accommodation is actually included for 2 months.
Ooh, okay, that's nice.
Yeah, within the 8,000 that you pay for tuition. So that is like a total steal.
Yeah, because also, finding a place. And then do you live with other people in the boot camp?
I'm not sure with the accommodations arrangement.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
But I mean, if you have the money to spend, I'm sure they could accommodate you in a single room.
It looks like we have a question. So Tanya Jackson said, I may have missed this, but how did you decide what languages to learn? So for me, actually, and you might have a different story, but I went to, there's this like Unicorns in Tech meetup in Berlin. It's like LGBT people in tech. And at the end, they do this thing where you line up and every 2 minutes you have to like move one person over. So you like talk to a lot of people. And I just went, and basically every person I was with, I was like, what language should I learn? I want to learn to code. What language should I learn? I want to learn to code. And everybody has a lot of opinions on this, but pretty much everybody was like, whatever, just learn JavaScript. It's like one of the most common, and you're going to like learn things later anyway. And once you learn something else, like once you learn one language, it'll be easier to learn others. So I kind of feel like just start with what is drawn to you. That's sort of like or what you're drawn to. That's kind of the advice I got, because you'll figure it out from there. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I definitely done a Facebook Live on this topic. Just start, because you basically need to know 10 essential concepts, and then know how to like when and how to use them. And then you're set. You can program anything.
Totally.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, Nicole. Do you have any last words?
I don't know. I mean, I think like if you're at all interested in coding, like you don't always have to go all the way. Like a little bit is still really useful to like lots of different jobs. So I think especially as the world gets more and more technological, like even jobs that had nothing to do with coding, like it's going to be a benefit to just understand the basics of it. So for me, even if I never become a developer, I feel like it's useful just that I understand how it works, because like everything has to do with code now, kind of, even jobs that are not code based. Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks for coming on, Nicole. It was so much fun. Can't wait
thank
to
you. Do more of these.
Absolutely.
I'll see you, Nicole, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Yeah.
Okay,
see you.
Bye.